And a very happy Monday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wags at the sports desk in Culver City.
And, John, we have breaking news about the murder of that L.A. County Sheriff's Deputy up in Palmdale. According to Richard Winton of the L.A. Times on Twitter, Kevin Cateno Salazar, according to sources, admitted to killing Deputy Ryan Klickenboomer as the cop drove his patrol cruiser onto Sierra Highway after stopping at a red light outside the Palmdale Sheriff's Station. In more details about the gunman, the suspect apparently heard voices, had attempted suicide. Mother said her son was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic about 5 years ago. This is according to Richard Winton of the L.A. Times.
All of these details coming in literally in the moments before we signed on the air. Here is what the mother said in Spanish to the Los Angeles Times. Quote, "My son is mentally ill, and if he did something, he wasn't in his full mental capacity. They're only saying that he was the one that shot the deputy, but nobody is saying he has a record for needing mental help." Salazar said her son was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic about 5 years ago. He'd say he was hearing voices in his head, she said, and sometimes he'd come home telling his parents or siblings that cars or people were following him in the streets. At times, she said, he'd grow so upset that he would cover his ears with his hands, yell, or stick his head in a trash can to try to drown out the voices. Quote, "We'd ask what he would hear, and he would just get hysterical," she said. The LA Times with all these pop-ups. "He'd grow upset," she said, and she'd try to calm him down, often after such episodes. Salazar said that her son would start to act like a child of about 5 years of age and ask to be hugged. She said she's called deputies at least twice to the Palmdale home in the past asking for help. When her son refused to take his medication and began to grow aggressive towards himself, but she said Cantejo Salazar had never hurt anyone before, and his aggression was always self-directed. Quote, I've called the police several times," she said. "In the end, they would say he's an adult, so if he doesn't want to take his medication, we can't do anything," end quote. Twice since his diagnosis, she said, he's attempted suicide. Quote, "It's not my son that did it. It's the disease that did it," she said. "They're putting all of this out there that my son killed someone, but nobody is saying that my son is sick. He's sick. And so many people talk about schizophrenia and then nothing happens," end quote. She said her son had been hospitalized in Sylmar in the last year and seemed to be doing better. He stopped taking his medication about 10 months ago, but she said he appeared to be calm, so she and his family didn't press it. When the cops arrived, she and her entire family were confused, she said. After the shooting, she said Cantejo Salazar was acting normal and there was no indication that a shooting had happened. Quote, "I didn't know when it happened. I just saw him normal," she said. "We were here working, cleaning chairs and tables, and he was okay. None of us knew anything," end quote. She said she was unaware that Cateno Salazar owned a gun, but was told by detectives that he had legally purchased a weapon that was used in the attack. Her son's Facebook and Instagram bios both read, "dead in a couple of days, weeks, or years," end quote. He followed League of Legends, a popular video game, writing and a rave review online for the multiplayer online battle arena, which he said deserved a rating of 100 out of 10. In a photo posted in September, he posed at the Grove with Charlie and Dixie D'Amelio at an event for the influencer's footwear brand. Julio Cruz, a neighbor of the suspect's family, said that he had heard police talking over the bullhorn early Monday morning, and they were saying, "Kevin, come out, surrender." Few details have been released, but law enforcement sources told the Times authorities launched a massive manhunt after the killing, leading to an East Palmdale neighborhood. Heavily armed deputies in tactical gear took a man in custody during the overnight operation, according to the sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to brief the media. The Saturday killing was captured on surveillance video, which was shared with the Times. So that's the story according to the family of the accused and the Los Angeles Times reporters who are covering this assassination of a deputy sheriff. If this information turns out to be true, it would be information that we've seen repeated over and over and over again, which is that paranoid schizophrenics, people with mental illness, lash out and snap and end up killing people before they end up either being caught by the cops or turning the gun on themselves. And we have a situation in this state and in this country where we don't take people who are not capable of taking care of themselves, taking their medication reliably, and institutionalizing them. And I have to say, I know what's going to happen here. There's going to be all these conversations about mental health and ending the stigma and those sorts of things. And this guy deserves our sympathy along with the deputy sheriff. Well, guess what? I've run out of sympathy. I don't care that he's a schizophrenic. I don't care that he's suffering from mental illnesses. I want this guy strapped to an electric chair and pumped so full of electrical volts in Northern California that the lights flicker in San Diego. That's what I want. He wants to put an end to the voices in his head? Fine. I've got a way to do it. It involves Old Sparky. Because I've completely run out of sympathy for this. We have a state government that refuses to act. Earlier this morning, I was at a Rite Aid picking up medication in a good neighborhood. It's not like I went to an area where the cops are constantly there and sirens are constantly blaring. I went to a Rite Aid in a good neighborhood. There was one homeless guy who was sitting in a wheelchair, standing up with his pants down around his ankles, fully exposed to people coming in and out of the Rite Aid. There was another person who would stand right in front of the front door and harass you demanding money. And then if you had paid for something with cash, I saw this happen to a different customer, and he knew you had money, questioning why you wouldn't give him the money that he knew that you had. We have mentally ill people all around us, and the state refuses to do anything about it. And then when they snap, we're told that the problem is us because we don't do enough to help them. Well, we tax ourselves every time you ask us to tax ourselves. We give you money to deal with the problem, whether it's homelessness, mental illness, whatever the case may be. And everything that they're doing is not working. And instead of trying something different, they just continue to double and triple down on the policies that they know aren't working. Whether it's giving drug addicts pipes so they could smoke meth or smoke crack, or turning their head the other way when you have someone who you know is a ticking time bomb, as is the case with this individual if the reporting turns out to be true. How many times do you want to watch this movie? How many times are they, meaning the people in charge of the state, willing to put up with it? And Gavin Newsom is going on CNN later today with Dana Bash. And Gavin Newsom just had a big speech, public appearance over the weekend, where he talked about California as the model for the rest of the nation. And if other states were more like California, things would be better off in this country. California has failed when it comes to crime, when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to dealing with mental illness. Not even a D-, an F. What they deserve, an F. And we all have to live with the consequences of their failure on a daily basis. And sometimes that involves having someone expose themselves to you when you go into a Rite Aid. Sometimes it involves being hit up for money. And sometimes it involves them shooting you. This is what we have to live around nonstop. Not because we have to, but because our elected leaders choose to. They think allowing this to happen is the humanitarian way of dealing with it. It's not. It's not humanitarian for us, and it's not humanitarian for them. If you are incapable of running your own affairs, you need to go into an institution. And here's the honest to God truth about that. I was reading an article. I wish I would have flagged it because I would pin the tweet and have it out there so all of you could read it. But in order to be compliant with what the courts now require for a mental institution, it costs about $450,000 per person per year.
And you can only have 16 people in a facility, because more than that, and it's just too scary.
That's right. Which means that putting them in an institution is just not something that's in the cards. The courts have ruled that out. If we wanted to do it, we couldn't do it. So fine. What did we do in the 1990s with these people? We put them in prison. We put them in jail. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that too. But John, prison isn't meant to be a mental institution. Well, as long as they're away from the rest of us, I don't care. If that's what we can legally put them in, then put them there. I don't care. I don't care if it's prison. I don't care if it's a mental institution. I really don't care. The mental institutions went away because of reporting, in part from Geraldo Rivera and others, that showed that people in these institutions were being abused by those who work there. Well, I am here to tell you, if $450,000 is what's required to not abuse them most of the time, then the old system where they got abused in the institutions was preferable to what we have now. Imagine working in one of those institutions where you have people where the voices never shut off and they're violent and they're aggressive. That would be an unbelievably miserable job. I don't think there's any way you can stop the abuse of these people. I really don't. There are ways you could limit the abuse to them, and I'd want to do it as humanely as possible. But this is a rough business. It's a rough business that attracts a certain type of person to work in that environment. And you're going to get people who really care, who have the patience of Job, and you're going to get people who take the job because it pays well and they can't get hired anywhere else. And those are going to be the bad apples, and those are going to be the problem children. But I am more comfortable with people like this being in institutions where they have to deal with a bad apple on occasion than allowing them to assassinate us in public. In order to go back to that system, we have to have pretty thick skin. We have to have pretty strong spines, because every once in a while you're going to see a report in a newspaper saying that something bad happened in one of them. That's just the cost of doing business. It really is. There's no other way around it. Either we go back to putting them in prison when they break the rules, and they break the rules all the time because they don't know where they are and they don't know what they're doing. Fine, put them in prison. And if you don't want to do that and you want to put them in an institution, $450,000 a person is not viable. So we got to go back to the old way, which means you have to be willing to put up with stories that have violins playing in the background where you learn about the bad things that happen to them. Well, you're going to have to choose. Do you want the bad things to happen to them, or do you want the bad things to happen to you? Because that's the choice that we have. There is a fork in the road, and there are two options. And so all of these hand-wringing stories about what happened to the mentally ill in prison and what happened to them in the mental institutions before we ended the mental institutions, that is preferable to the insanity that we live with on a daily basis. It just is. I don't know where the political will is in this state. Maybe the population isn't willing to put up with that. Maybe they don't have the stomach for it. But you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And not everything in life is clean. Not everything in life is easy. Not everything in life has a great big bow wrapped on top of it. Sometimes it's messy. If we're going to solve this problem, we're going to have to be willing to get messy. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, we had a ton of fun over at Gelson's in Century City on Friday, And people are emailing us saying, I missed the show. Can I go back and listen to the podcast because I heard it was so much fun? That is easy to do.
That's right, because I just posted it. I got in a little early to make sure that happened. But go to KABC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes, including the 3 hours from Friday's show that I just posted. You can also search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube. They'll be up there as well. So many ways to listen. Please listen to just how joyful and fun that event was, and maybe you'll be inspired to come out to the next one, because that was a good time at Gelson's.
Now, you sampled the sushi after the show. How was that?
I had a rainbow roll, which Tony, the bartender, recommended. It was fabulous. Had a wine flight pairing with it. So some of the sushi went well with Zin. Some went with Sauv Blanc. Some went with Rosé. Some went with Cabernet. It was a good time. I have a real strict rule. I don't eat or drink anything but water till 3:01. At 3:01, all bets are off. And if I didn't have to drive from Century City back to the Valley, I would really enjoy myself at that bar. That is a good time.
And for some people, it wasn't sushi time. It was a cheeseburger in paradise.
Oh, yeah. The cheeseburgers look fantastic. The sandwiches, the salads. It's Gelson's. They don't do anything wrong.
On Friday, we told you that the state of California has grant money available for different locales to help fight retail theft that has spread all across the state. Some cities, like San Francisco, applied for the grant money and received it, and they're using that money to try to crack down on criminals. In Oakland, in Alameda County, that county forgot to fill out the paperwork and send it in to the state of California on time, so Oakland, which is a hotbed of crime, gets nothing.
By the way, the city administrator for Oakland went on TV this weekend to explain himself, and here's what he had to say.
Quite frankly, we just missed it, and so we failed in that space.
How do you miss the deadline for millions of dollars?
Might be the most casual, quite frankly, I've ever heard.
Quite frankly, we just missed it, and so we failed in that space.
I wonder if he's going to lose his job over this.
No.
Okay. If you think it can't get any worse than Oakland just forgetting about filling out the form, it can get worse. Because here in Los Angeles County, our district attorney chose not to even fill out the form because he doesn't want to crack down on retail theft.
That's right. This was reported by Fox 11's Phil Schuman on Friday.
The CHP called it a game changer, confirming the grants in a virtual press conference, including the San Francisco DA, Brooke Jenkins, but not LA County DA George Gascon. As Fox 11 has learned, he did not even apply for the money.
Free money from the state to hire dedicated prosecutors to prosecute nothing but organized retail theft, something Gascon claims he cares about.
Quite frankly.
And he did not apply for it because he does not want any of these people in prison.
Okay, what's worse, forgetting to fill out the form and just being dumb? Or choosing to not fill out the form because you side with the criminals over the retail establishments?
Oh, Gascon is way worse. Oakland's just funny.
We got some wobbly knees allies.
Let's have more details on this from Fox 11's Phil Schuman.
That's right. Let's go back to the beginning of this piece.
Well, we're in West Hollywood, Alex. We could be anywhere. And you heard it from Christy Fajardo just a minute ago. People are fed up with crime. Shoppers are afraid to go into stores. Business owners are afraid of what might happen to their inventory. They're losing money. So the state is making what they say is its biggest ever investment in fighting retail theft. For some, it's good news, even though it's a little too late.
When?
A new reality for business owners like John Georgian. A new metal door.
That's a great name.
That almost sounds like it should be from Les Mis.
A new reality for business owners like John Georgian.
24601.
A new metal door and a gun literally by his side when he works.
Oh, my. The jewelers are packing heat.
You know who used to do that was Darrell Issa back when he was in business.
Oh, boy.
He had a gun on the table.
A new metal door and a gun literally by his side when he works. This is what it's come to after decades in business.
We are back to the Wild Wild West.
as our friend from Oakland told us.
Oh, yes.
I mean, do you profile the person? Do you see what they're doing? Are they going to break my windows? That's what I'm afraid of. That's it. And we're armed, basically. We have to.
He sounds like a shotgun kind of guy.
I would not rob that guy if I was a criminal.
There's no other choice.
Maybe they can put big signs in the front. I'm armed and I've got a real itchy trigger finger.
What's that sign that they sell in all the small towns across America? This house is protected by Smith & Wesson.
There's no other choice.
This after his West Hollywood jewelry shop was hit last year. The early morning.
You're telling me the ambassadors didn't solve that crime?
How did the ambassadors let this one slip through the cracks?
Well, the ambassadors were too busy taking videos of people beating the crap out of each other.
Ooh, this doesn't look too good.
This after his West Hollywood jewelry shop was hit last year. The early morning burglars in the store for 90 seconds never caught. He has now been added to the unfortunate list of victims of break-ins, smash and grabs, businesses big and small.
The Nat sound in this story is fantastic. Phil Schumann is a pro.
You know, the sound that he's playing in this rap sounds like every hotel room I've ever been in when I have to wake up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Especially when I get one of those handicap accessible rooms.
You know, I've pitched this to sales for years. We'd love to get a glass company out there to sponsor every time we have a crime story and a window breaks. American Vision Windows.
Smash and grabs, businesses big and small.
It comes up in our conversations a lot with our friends.
That are a regular feature of the news that Georgian and his partner follow.
We're just recovering, not just financially, emotionally too. It's terrifying. Okay, so it's not okay to break into somebody, and they do have to do something about it.
What California's...
It is not okay.
But we're not going to do anything about it because our district attorney chooses not to take any of the grant money that would allow him to hire more prosecutors to prosecute these people.
Quite frankly,
what California is doing about it is investing money, lots of it, $267 million.
Daddy Gavin loves to rip open that wallet.
He is California's sugar daddy these days.
To 55 law enforcement agencies, big and small, as well as district attorneys, to fund investigators, new technology, and additional prosecutors.
This is a sizable investment that will be a force multiplier when it comes to combating organized retail crime in California.
The CHP called it a game changer, confirming the grants in a virtual press conference, including the San Francisco DA, Brooke Jenkins, but not LA County DA, George Gascon. As Fox 11 has learned, he did not even apply for the money.
What an a-hole.
Okay, so just put this in the context of everything that you read in the LA Times, the Sacramento Bee, and other newspapers that cover the state of California. All they want to talk about is how disadvantaged communities of color don't get the same resources as everyone else. And they imply that it's some kind of racism that they don't get the same dollars that the affluent neighborhoods get. This is a perfect example as to why this dysfunction occurs in those neighborhoods. The neighborhoods in the suburbs, which already devote a large number of resources to public safety, they're the ones that are conscientious about hitting their dates. They're the ones that want this grant money so they can go after these criminals. And they're getting the money from Sacramento. But you take a look at two areas that have the highest crime in the state. There are zip codes in Los Angeles County that are absolutely mind-blowing. And then you've got the city of Oakland. And they don't get any of the money because they're either too stupid to get the paperwork in on time or they choose not to. This is not some kind of boogeyman that is depriving these communities of resources. These are these communities electing individuals who choose not to take the money. That's what's happening here.
I want to thank Governor Newsom for making this issue a priority and for allocating resources from our state to ensure that we are able to set a new tone.
Brooke Jenkins got $25 million.
Oh, she's happy. And they'll probably give her more because Oakland and L.A. don't want any.
So, Why didn't Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon's office apply for the grant, which could have been $15 million, $20 million to hire prosecutors devoted only to this crime? Alex Marla, we're still waiting for the answer.
They really do have some of the best reporters in Los Angeles at Channel 11. Phil and Ed are my faves.
Live in West Hollywood, Phil Schuman, Fox 11 News.
We'll see if we ever get one. All right, Phil. Thanks so much.
Was that a little shade from Marla?
Don't wait up for an answer. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Here's an email from a listener that says, ever notice that little Ricky sounds like a Cuban Kermit the Frog with marbles in his mouth?
We got some wobbly knees allies.
Oh, one of our listeners gave him the best nickname that I cannot say on the air. But if I did say it on the air, I can absolutely guarantee you that's the only thing that you would call him.
Quite frankly,
I didn't even hear this. I want to know.
Could you take me off the air and into your ear for a second?
You can tell me during the break.
Okay. I don't even know if I can describe what this term is, because even just getting a little bit too close to the sun will cause me to burn up.
Can we go to commercial? I want to know.
We'll go to commercial. Since we told you that the city of Oakland forgot to fill out their paperwork to get grant money to fight retail theft earlier this hour, we figured right now would be a good time to open up the KABC Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, Oakland is the city of the hour.
That's right. The city of Oakland is losing a restaurant that's been in business for almost 4 decades because of crime. For more, here's KPIX.
And tonight in Oakland, where a popular downtown restaurant will be shutting down at the end of the month. Le Cheval at the corner of Clay and 10th Streets has been an Oakland institution for almost 4 decades.
The owner tells our Don Lynn it's not the pandemic, it is the crime that has killed his business.
COVID didn't take him out. It was the criminals.
Suntran's mother opened La Cheval 38 years ago.
This is my mother, the founder, and older brother, older sister.
The family-run restaurant serves up Vietnamese cuisine with a touch of French influence.
That sounds damn good.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're very popular. The spicy wing, the cooked beef steak, and garlic noodle.
This is an institution to Oakland, and it's very well known.
This institution is shutting down on September 30th.
And I said, I shut down, everyone crying. My family member, my employee. I feel really bad. It broke my heart. It broke my heart.
He laid off workers, cut back on restaurant hours, even closed down on Sundays to try to avoid permanent closure, but says he can no longer push forward. Business is at about 25% of pre-pandemic levels.
Even with a free rent right now, we still cannot survive.
Even with
free rent, we still cannot survive.
He blames...
Damn, business is bad.
I'll tell you, I grew up in Garden Grove. And when you get sick, as good as chicken soup is to help you get better, try some Vietnamese soup with all of the same properties and a lot of kick to it. You'll be back to normal in a couple of days.
Oh, I do it every single time I'm under the weather. I actually get excited about when I get sick because I get to have pho.
He blames auto burglaries and crime for the shutdown. Some customers were even robbed at gunpoint.
They just wanted to get some chicken wings.
Imagine being a soup salesman and having to deal with all of that chaos.
Even right on the front of the restaurant, and they car still broken into. And that they really mad. And they told me, Sean, I love your restaurant, I love your food, I love your family, but I cannot come back to Oakland. $30 meal become like $500 something.
That's the way they're talking about crime these days. Oh, I can't go down to downtown. That'll cost me $5,000 because they break my car.
What does a car window cost? And then because everyone is getting theirs broken all at the same time, they may not necessarily even be stocked with a window that'll fit your car.
$30 meal become like $500 something.
I'm afraid to drive my vehicle here, so I actually caught an Uber here. I won't drive it because it could cost you a couple grand with your windows gone.
Oh, my God, I love it.
She's not wrong.
I Uber everywhere because if I happen to drive to this fantastic restaurant, my car will get broken into.
Oakland police report auto burglary is up 46% this year compared to last. More than 10,000 cases so far. Robbery also went up by 30%.
I wonder what changed in the last year.
Gee, I wonder.
Could it be the mayor firing the police chief and then, of course, Pammy Pricey?
Quite frankly.
The lack of office worker, it not kill us. The crime, the criminal kill us.
City Council President Nikki Fortunato Bass says the police department will soon expand on the number of foot patrol officers. The CHP is also sending in help.
Yeah, 6 guys.
We know people are fearful. We know they're frustrated. They are hurting. We don't want to lose another business.
Well, you just did.
One that's been there for 40 years and survived COVID, but they can't survive your stupidity.
So he's shutting down on the 30th. He's going to take a vacation, and then he's going to reopen his restaurant in a nearby city that's not this bad.
Government matters. If you don't believe me, talk to that restaurateur. He'll tell you everything you need to know. All right, we've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.